Hey there, history fans! Today, we're diving into the story of the Marshall Islands, a nation spread across the vast Pacific Ocean. Imagine a place where the sun always shines, the water's crystal clear, and coconuts are basically a food group. That's the Marshall Islands in a nutshell. Around 2,000 years ago, way before GPS or even compasses, skilled navigators arrived by boat from Southeast Asia. Forget fancy cruise ships, we're talking about double-hulled canoes. These intrepid explorers, the ancestors of modern-day Marshallese, navigated by the stars and the waves, eventually making these islands their home. They built a unique culture around fishing, farming taro and breadfruit, and mastering the art of outrigger canoeing. Life wasn't always easy, typhoons anyone, but they adapted and thrived in this island paradise. So next time you're struggling to parallel park, think of the Marshallese navigating the Pacific by the stars and be grateful for small favors. Fast forward a couple of millennia, and things got a lot more crowded in the Pacific. Enter the Europeans, sailing around in their giant ships, looking for new lands, and probably snacks, let's be real. In 1526, a Spanish explorer named Alonso de Salazar stumbled upon the Marshall Islands. He was probably hoping for gold and spices, but hey, at least he could add discovering a few islands to his resume. The Marshall Islands weren't exactly a high priority for the Spanish Empire. They popped in and out for a couple of centuries, giving the islands their name after a British captain, John Marshall. Awkward. But the Spanish weren't exactly known for their stellar hospitality. Let's just say that forced labor and introduced diseases didn't exactly win them any popularity contests among the Marshallese. By the late 19th century, the Spanish Empire was starting to look more like the Spanish used to be an empire. Their once vast territories were dwindling, and they were struggling to maintain control over their remaining colonies. Germany, eager to grab some colonies of its own, swooped in and bought the Marshall Islands. Yes, you read that right, bought them. This was part of their grand plan to establish a presence in the Pacific and expand their influence. Apparently, having a global empire was all the rage back then. Every major power wanted a piece of the colonial pie, and Germany was no exception. The Germans brought their love of bureaucracy and organization to the islands. They set up administrative offices and imposed their structured way of governance. They developed copra plantations, coconut is surprisingly useful, and introduced a cash economy. This transformed the local economy and integrated it into the global market. But their rule wasn't exactly sunshine and rainbows either. The Marshallese people faced numerous challenges under German control. They imposed their laws and customs, often ignoring the traditional practices of the Marshallese people. This led to cultural clashes and resistance from the locals. Then came World War I. The global conflict reshaped the political landscape and had significant repercussions for the Marshall Islands. Germany lost, and Japan, having played the helpful neighbor card, was awarded the Marshall Islands by the League of Nations. This marked the beginning of a new era of foreign control. The Japanese saw the strategic value of these islands and quickly got to work building military bases. They fortified the islands, preparing for future conflicts. Not exactly the best house guests, were they? Their military presence brought significant changes and challenges to the Marshallese people. Section 4. Island warfare. The Pacific theater turns up the heat. And then, well, World War II happened. Remember those Japanese military bases? They became a major problem for the United States and its allies when Japan launched a surprise attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941. The Pacific Ocean became a battleground, and the Marshall Islands were right in the middle of it. Battles like Tarawa and Kwajalein saw some of the fiercest fighting of the entire war. The islands, once peaceful and serene, were transformed into scenes of intense combat. It was a brutal, bloody affair with heavy losses on both sides. Imagine fighting in paradise, surrounded by palm trees and turquoise waters, except, with bombs and bullets flying everywhere. The United States eventually gained control of the Marshall Islands, but not without a cost. The scars of war, both physical and emotional, would linger long after the fighting stopped. Section 5. Brightest Day or Doomsday. Post-war and nuclear fallout. After World War II, the United States found itself in charge of the Marshall Islands, along with a whole bunch of other islands in the Pacific. These islands, scattered like pearls across the ocean, were suddenly under American administration. They decided to turn the area into a trust territory, promising to help these islands develop and, not be ruled by colonial powers anymore. The idea was to bring progress and stability to these remote regions. Sounds good on paper, right? But as history often shows, intentions and outcomes can be worlds apart. But then came the Cold War, and suddenly those tropical islands didn't seem so peaceful anymore. The geopolitical tension turned these serene locations into strategic military assets. The US decided to test out its shiny new nuclear weapons in the Marshall Islands. The islands were seen as remote enough to avoid immediate international scrutiny. Yeah, you heard that right. The decision was made with little regard for the local inhabitants. They figured, hey, it's a big ocean, what could go wrong? Spoiler alert, a lot. The environmental and human toll was catastrophic. Between 1946 and 1958, the US detonated 67 nuclear bombs in the Marshall Islands. The scale of these tests was unprecedented. That's like 1.6 Hiroshima-sized bombs every year for 12 years. The sheer magnitude of these tests is hard to fathom. The most famous, Castle Bravo, was 1,000 times more powerful than the bomb dropped on Hiroshima. The explosion was visible from hundreds of miles away. Needless to say, this did not end well for the Marshallese people or their environment. The fallout from these tests has had lasting impacts, both physically and culturally, on the islands and their inhabitants. Section 6. Self-Rule and Sovereignty, the Republic of the Marshall Islands. After decades of being controlled by foreign powers and used as a testing ground for the most destructive weapons ever created, the Marshall Islands finally gained their independence in 1986. They signed a compact of free association with the United States, giving them self-governance while still receiving economic assistance and security guarantees from the US. It wasn't a perfect solution, but it was a start. The Marshall Islands had to rebuild their nation, literally and figuratively, after decades of colonialism and nuclear testing. They had to deal with the long-term health and environmental impacts of radiation exposure, as well as the economic challenges of developing a small island nation in a globalized world. Section 7. Paradise Found and Challenged, Modern Life and Climate Concerns. So, where do the Marshall Islands stand today? Well, it's complicated. This small island nation, located in the central Pacific Ocean, faces a unique set of challenges and opportunities. On the one hand, they're a sovereign nation, a member of the United Nations, with a unique culture and a stunningly beautiful environment. The Marshallese people take great pride in their heritage, which is rich with traditions and customs passed down through generations. Tourism is growing, and the Marshallese people are known for their warmth and hospitality. Visitors from around the world come to experience the pristine beaches, crystal-clear waters, and vibrant local culture. But the legacy of colonialism and nuclear testing still casts a long shadow. The islands were used as a testing ground for nuclear weapons during the mid-20th century, leaving a lasting impact on the environment and the health of the people. Health problems related to radiation exposure persist, and the islands are incredibly vulnerable to climate change. The healthcare system is continually working to address these issues, but resources are often limited. Rising sea levels threaten to literally wipe them off the map. Coastal erosion and frequent flooding are already affecting daily life, making it a constant battle to protect their homes and way of life. The Marshall Islands are a powerful reminder that history isn't just something you read about in textbooks. It has real, lasting consequences. The stories and experiences of the Marshallese people serve as a testament to their resilience and strength. And while the future may be uncertain, the resilience and determination of the Marshallese people give us hope that they can overcome these challenges and build a brighter future for generations to come. Their community spirit and collaborative efforts are truly inspiring. Stay tuned, world history is far from over. The story of the Marshall Islands is still being written, and it holds valuable lessons for us all.